Hello and welcome to Comm Talk by Geek Devotions. This particular episode is going to be a bit of wibbly-wobbly as they find themselves in a bit of a jam. In an attempt to bring better content to you devoted geeks, they obtained an infinite improbability drive. The principle of generating small amounts of finite improbability by simply hooking the logic circuits of a Bambleweenie 57 sub-meson brain to an atomic vector plotter suspended in a strong Brownian motion producer, say a nice hot cup of tea, were of course well understood. However, its use for podcasting were strongly warned against as it would potentially cause madness and a potential addiction to coffee. Though, our heroes aboard the ship with no name and a surprisingly silent android named Glix have tossed the warning to the side to bring you, dear listeners, quality and random content on a semi-regularly irregular basis. Why use an infinite improbability drive? Is it because the only known and more reliable flux capacitor is taken by Retro Rewind podcast? Probably not. Either way, we join our very improbable flight crew in a rather awkward situation, as their device is currently on the fritz and so some discomfort may occur during this episode. Should the room begin to spin, try to remember that it has nothing to do with this podcast, but rather you're either sitting in an office chair on rollers or you're suddenly super aware of the rotation of the Earth. Enjoy.
Captain, we have a proximity alert with the planet Geekery. We are approaching collision.
Glix, get somebody on the comms. Enter in the security code.
257. Security code accepted.
Hello, devoted geeks, and welcome to episode 42 of Comm Talk, the podcast extension of Geek Devotions, the YouTube show from a couple of devoted geeks who are devoted to letting people know that they are loved. I am Dallas, and with me is...
Celeste!
Excuse me. Please do not forget about me.
Oh, yes, this is Glix, our semi-sentient pan-dimensional android. As you listen to this podcast, please interact with us. Send us your thoughts on what we are saying via Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us by simply looking up Geek Devotions. Do us a favor and leave a review on Apple Podcast comments. Please interact with us.
Alright, so today's episode is going to be a little different in that our infinite improbability drive is a bit on the fritz, and it's acting up randomly. We have our android, Glix, on it, trying to fix it for us. Glix, how's it going back there?
I am a pan-dimensional being, not a miracle worker. I'm fixing it as fast as I can. I suggest we proceed with caution as this may go off randomly throughout this episode.
Well, okay then.
Alrighty then.
So...
this should be interesting.
Right, Celeste, what are we talking about today?
Today being our 42nd episode, episode 42, and 42 being the answer to everything.
To everything.
Everything.
As stated in our good, friendly guide to the galaxy, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy because
42.
It's because 42. We still don't know the question. I don't think we've ever figured out the question.
I don't think so either.
But that is what we're talking about because of the answer.
Right.
Une illusion commence comme toute autre idée, comme un œuf. Identique à l'extérieur, parfaitement formé, de la coquille, vous ne sauriez jamais que quelque chose n'allait pas. C'est ce qui est à l'intérieur qui compte.
Glix, what just happened?
At an improbability of 400,362 to 1. A random slur of psychological babble just flew out of the time warp. If they had jumped to the left rather than the right, it would have been in English rather than French.
Oh.
Well,
okay then.
guess we'll jump left next time?
How very improbable.
Oh dear.
Alright, so, like I said, we're talking about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So first question is, I guess, that should be asked is, what is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? If you're unfamiliar with it, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is it's a radio drama, it's a book, it's a TV series, a video game, and a movie.
There's a video game?
There's a video game. I just discovered this morning as we're preparing for this podcast. And it's a text-based video game. It looks, it's from the 80s. It looks interesting.
Yeah.
But again, it's a text-based video game. So
I'm intrigued now.
yeah, we'll find it. We'll check it out. I think there is a free legal version out there somewhere for you to play.
Maybe we could play that for the 48-hour drive for Victims and Villains.
Maybe. We'll find out.
We're looking for games for that if y'all have suggestions.
So, but Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is an interesting story basis. Did some reading up on it. And Douglas Adams is the guy who created it. And it started off, it was supposed to be a series of radio dramas. It was a 6-part radio drama series that followed a singular character, and the world ends at the end of every episode just differently, depending on what took place during the day.
Oh my gosh.
And as he wrote the story, he was like, we need something, we need somebody to help us along the storyline. And so he created the concept of an alien, and an alien who is writing a book. And so through a series of revisions, we get a very different but very similar story in that you have a character named Arthur Dent who discovers his house is being destroyed by the government to make way for a bypass.
Because you must make a bypass. That's what you do.
Yes. And his best friend, Ford Defect.
Prefect.
Prefect. No, is it Prefect? Yeah. Prefect.
Ford Prefect. Because that's a car.
Yeah, right. But Ford Prefect is an alien. And the world's about to end. And they're destroying his planet by a group called the Volgons to make room for an intergalactic bypass.
Because that's what you do. You make bypasses. Can I just say I love Mos Def as Ford Prefect in the movie edition.
Right.
Like, he did such a good job.
I loved him. I had the opportunity to watch the TV version, and I found myself missing Mos Def.
I know. We were listening to the radio version this morning as we were getting ready for all of this, and I found myself missing Mos Def and Alan Rickman.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's not Marvin.
The emotions just got real here.
Of course they got real.
So, but anyways, the interesting thing about this whole deal with Mos Def, or rather with this version that we knew about the movie, is every version, the radio show, the TV series, the video game, and the books, and the movie, they're all a bit different.
Yeah.
Things are kind of are in different directions in different places, and but they all tell generally the exact same story, just kind of with their own different flares. And I believe Douglas Adams was involved in every single project also. Which is quite nice, because you don't often find that. Right. So, like, for example, some of the major differences in the movie, you have Arthur Dent, and they go through a series of crazy adventures before they end up on Magathria, and they get to the whole issue with, what's the answer? The Volgons show up, and they defeat the Volgons quite hilariously with the point of view gun, and then they're like, oh well, let's go. There's a great restaurant at the end of the universe, and they go off to do that. However, in the radio drama, by episode 2, I think, they're landing on Magathria. Like, everything else that happened, like going to the planet with the weird, like, sneezing religion and all that stuff did not happen. And, like, you get introduced to those characters and some of those things later, but that stuff didn't happen until. So it's interesting how things are out of order, but they're telling the same story. Right. Well, some of it, I think, may have been Douglas Adams trolling, like purposefully doing things different to annoy the fans. I could be wrong. Right. But it seems like something he would do. But it also could be that they needed something shorter and more cohesive for the movie, so they had to put things in a different order. Right. That's a possibility. It's quite interesting, to say the least. Now, interesting thing about Douglas Adams, and one of the things that some people have issues with, is he is a very, very staunch, from our understanding, at least from what you were telling me, Celeste, atheist, which you can definitely see within this particular series, that it does come from an atheistic point of view. But it's interesting how they do it. Like, you don't see it in the movie, and I'm not sure if it's in the book, but I do remember it clearly in the TV series and in the radio drama, which, side note, thank you, Ben Avery from Strangers and Aliens, for letting me know about the radio drama.
I knew it was a thing. I didn't know we had access to it.
So, well, I found it on YouTube, so I'm not sure how legal it is. But,
well,
but
it's YouTube.
Right. But Douglas Adams, he is an atheist, but there's something interesting that took place. Yes, there is some mockery of religion and faith. Mm-hmm. However, there was an interesting line in the TV series and in the radio drama where they're talking about basically the problem with the world, with Earth itself, with humanity and the fighting and the war and how we just don't seem to get it. And he goes, in fact, we had, how'd it go again? In fact, there was even a man who was nailed to a tree simply for saying, come on, let's get along, folks. Let's be nice to each other. And which obviously is a reference to Christ himself and Christ's solution of peace and whatnot. Again, he's pointing out as Christ simply just being a man.
Right.
Where instead of our point of view where he is the actual Savior and Christ bringing a correct point of view. But so what I see there happening personally, reading and stuff, is while he seems to have more of an issue with organized religion rather than the concept of Jesus himself. The teachings of Jesus and our beliefs, I think he generally has respect for, and he believes them to be okay from that one line. But the concept of organized religion, which is what I see him making small jokes, it's not the entire thing. Let's say that.
It's not.
It's not like the entire thing is a dissertation on why religion is evil.
Because if it was, we wouldn't watch it.
Right, but he seems to have issues with organized religion as a whole, which I can understand.
Yeah.
Organized religion has been unfortunately been used as a tool of the enemy over the years to really pull people away from Christ. Right. and from the teachings that God really has for humanity. I mean, you have ridiculous and heartbreaking things such as the Crusades that took place in the name of the church. Even Hitler used Christ in his pursuit and passion for the Holocaust.
Yeah.
And then you have and he was using even writers, unfortunately, later writings of people like Martin Luther and whatnot who wrote horrific things about the Jews.
Yeah.
And honestly, my personal opinion, I'm wondering if since those were the later writings, if maybe he was starting to go a little senile.
Quite possibly, because I mean, it's not like they knew during that time about dementia, about Alzheimer's. They didn't know things. That's just when people got old, they got crazy. Right. So
exactly. So, but Hitler used some of that stuff in his propaganda against the Jewish nation and the Jewish people. So, again, organized religion has been used in tragic ways, and so I can kind of see why Douglas Adams would maybe have an issue with that. But there's other reasons to what, because there is this debate within Christianity, within people of faith. Well, you shouldn't be partaking in secularism and taking in things that are secular.
Right.
To which I say, stop buying clothes from Walmart.
Truth. True. Which is feasible, but a pain. Mm-hmm. Because, like, I could make our clothes, but they would not be as stylish, and I'm not that good.
Right. So,
like, I'm not that good of a seamstress.
So, but it's one of those things, secular stuff, it's just out there in the world, and it is the predominant thing. It's far more entertaining than, sadly, most Christian stuff. We had an interesting conversation with Andrew of XP Comics, actually, about the issue with Christian media itself. Not all Christian media, but some Christian media is more of it's always the same PSA. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and I agree with them, sometimes we make our protagonist more like Jesus than Jesus himself.
Yeah.
And so, but there is an advantage to us, to a Christian listening and reading through secular entertainment such as this. And again, we're not saying that you need to be listening to secular stuff all the time. You don't need to be taking in junk all the time. That is inappropriate. There is a balance to it. But there is an advantage in that it gives you an interesting look at the secular mindset.
It does. And if you understand the secular mindset, you understand the mindset of people who are not Christians, who do not believe what you believe, then you're better able to have a conversation with them. You know, you come at somebody and you don't understand where they're coming from, they're just going to think you're being a jerk.
Right.
Because you don't know. Mm-hmm. It's like, good example. If you go to, I believe it is Japan, it may be all the Asian countries, but I know specifically it's Japan. If you just take your chopsticks and stick it straight up in your rice, that is a huge offense.
Right.
Because of some of their religious and cultural beliefs.
Right.
So they want you to put your chopsticks to the side. But as Americans, we leave our silverware in the bowls all the time.
Right.
Like, it's just, okay, we're setting the fork down, we're going to grab our drink. If you do that there, it's a huge offense. So you have to understand, or you're going to do something that offends someone without you realizing it.
Right. And in that offense, it's not even, some people like, well, who cares? You know, well, no, it's, you know, there's a difference between the gospel being offending people and then us offending them and closing them off to the gospel.
Yeah.
And so there is something to understand things. And yes, this is a comedy. Hitchhikers, it's not like this is a discourse on secular culture, but you see clues into secular culture. And so that's part of the reason why, it's interesting for me to watch Hitchhiker's Guide and listen to it, because it does give an interesting look into secular culture. Again, granted, this was secular culture mindset from the 70s. Yeah. However, there's a lot of prevailing themes within it that we see happening today in people. But also, it's fun. I mean, it's a funny show.
It really legitimately is.
So there's a lot of really great jokes, a lot of great comedy. It's actually very, very clean. I want to say it's for little kids, maybe teenagers and above, because you have to be able to think through a few things. Yeah. And you also have to have a sense of British humor.
Which if your small children do not watch British cartoons, they will not.
Exactly. Oh, man. So, but that's really a lot of it, an aspect of it. I mean, we really enjoy British comedy. It's a relatively clean British comedy, and it's worth listening to at times. Right. Again, doesn't need to be all the time.
No.
We need to balance out certain things.
I think we reference it more than we watch it.
Probably. But I think, again, there's a balance. Again, we take this pendulum swing all kinds of directions. But we need... What's that noise? Glix, what in the world is happening right now?
At an improbability of 3,185,601,035 to 1, we are suddenly on a lift. We appear to be leaving level 42 and are currently heading to level 7.
Oh, maybe we'll get to see Ben.
Maybe. I mean, he is on level 7.
That is the name of his podcast.
Unannounced to our podcasters, this seemingly ordinary lift is actually the exact lift that a man named Ramon had first created the idea of gathering a group of friends to discuss Japanese animation and have theological discussions from reformed perspective. Whether improbability drives ability to drop our podcasters into this exact lift was predestined, self-willed, or simply random is actually a topic of great debate for theologians in a coffee shop called The Hub.
Think we'll find Phil?
Ooh, maybe we will find Phil.
I hope we find Phil.
Welcome to level 7.
Ah!
Phil!
Coulson!
Oh man, we just re-entered normality.
No!
Oh, this is about to get fun.
But...
Alright, well, here we go. So let's tackle the next question here, which is simply this. Our first exposure to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Celeste, what was your first exposure to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
My first exposure to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was my dad telling me about it.
Really?
Like, he has read all the books. I'm pretty sure he listened to the radio drama in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And then he does not care for the new movie.
That's... A lot of people don't.
I think it's because it's so different from the radio drama. Uh-huh. And, like, he doesn't care for Marvin. He thinks Marvin has too much emotion in his voice. Like, he thinks that Alan Rickman didn't do it monotone enough.
Really?
I want to say that's what he said. It's been a while since we've had a conversation about these books.
Uh-huh.
But he loves the books. We actually, for one of his birthdays, got him a really nice edition of all of them together bound, and it has like the silver stamping, and so that was my first exposure was, oh, my dad likes this.
Right.
So I've slowly been acquiring things. We've listened to the radio drama recently. I read the first book a couple years ago. The book is really dry, so it's really hard to get through.
Right.
I think British humor does not translate well into written word.
I don't know, maybe. So for me, my first exposure to it really was the movie. I was working at Hollywood Video at the time, and it had just come out when we were closing. And one of my managers was like, "Hey, we're going to watch this movie while we close." I'm like, "All right, cool." This is a normal thing we did at Hollywood Video. So he plugs it in, and the first thing is, of course, in the movie, of course, is the scene where the dolphins are leaving Earth.
So long and thanks for all the fish.
There's the great musical number. It's awesome. It's so fun. I remember I'm sweeping and I look up and going, "What is happening?" And I am fascinated. Like this whole thing, like they're going through the story about telling about we love all your tiny tots and your pregnant women. I'm like, what is happening? Like it was
what is going on?
It was so strange, and I loved it. I had to rent it later and watch it to catch everything about it. I've watched it probably 4 or 5 times. I watched it probably 4 or 5 times in the first few months it came out because there's so many small things to catch. And over the years, I've watched it several times, obviously, especially after finding other aspects. Yeah. So when I was in college later, I discovered the TV series. And so I watched through the TV series. I was like, wow, there's things that are different. And I go back and watch the movie. I go, wow, they're making references to the TV series. So like one of my favorite things that I caught was Marvin, the TV series. It's a very blocky style robot. Whereas in the movie, he's got the giant head, the giant round head.
Head the size of the moon.
No, his head size of a planet.
Oh, head the size of a planet.
They send me down to the cargo hold. So, but he, in the scene where they first bust in to, into the Vogon offices because they're trying to rescue Trish, or Trillian as it is. In the line, in the queue, as they say.
Wait, I've got this. I'm British. I know how to queue.
But in the midst of it, there is a silver robot, and that is the original character design for Marvin from the TV series.
Nice.
And so catching these references, so I'll go back and watch the movie or something when I do that. Now, having listened to the radio drama, not quite done. I think I got about 3 more episodes left to the radio drama to finish up. I want to go back again and watch the movie and the TV series and see what I've missed and what's been caught up.
Well, one thing I did notice is the intro, because we listened to about 20 minutes of the intro together, and then you kept going, and I went to work.
Right.
Because I can't do stories while I'm at work. I have to listen to either music or podcast because I get too in depth with the stories. But it was, some of it was verbatim from the beginning of the movie. Like the explanation of the Hitchhiker's Guide, it was verbatim.
Right.
I was like, dang.
Yeah. It's quite interesting because the more that I watched it, again, like I said, the radio drama is, the sequencing is different from the sequencing in the movie and even in the TV series. But it's interesting because I'm listening to it, I'm going, wait a minute, that's the quote at this scene. And so I'm seeing these things correlate between each other. Again, some portions are very different at different times, but I'm starting to see things come together. It's really pretty cool. And you know me, I love it when you pay homage to original things. If you're doing a remake or you're doing a, not necessarily a reboot, but a continuation, but you pay homage to the original stuff. I just love it. I appreciate it so much. So I'm seeing these things, and it makes me appreciate the movie all the more. Again, I know that some of your diehard Hitchhiker Guides fans are pretty mad about it and don't like it, but I enjoy it. Wait a minute. Where are we? Why is it so quiet? Is that a radio sound going on?
What is happening?
Glix, what is happening?
My readings tell me that we are at the beginning of some sort of radio drama.
Oh my.
An episode of The Shadow called A Geek Under Grace.
Oh dear.
Maybe we should take a commercial break while we go through this episode.
And go hide?
Maybe.
And we're going to hide.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
Are you a new business or ministry and need help getting your message out? Are you a budding artist who needs help sharing your passion with the world? Need help creating a social media presence that's impactful and represents who you are, but can't afford to have someone else run it for you all the time? One of my passions is to help people establish a social media presence so they can reach others with a message that encourages and changes lives. Not only do I want to help you create it, but I want to give you the skills so that you can maintain and grow your online presence. I offer a variety of services from graphic design to creating a social media campaign to consultation. If you're interested in my help, email me at geekdevotions@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. All right, Devoted Geeks, we are back at normality.
Thank goodness.
As normal as you get on this ship.
It's better than the shadow. Crazy things happen.
Right. All right. So, since we're talking about the series and some of the stuff that we've enjoyed, what is your favorite character in the series itself?
I have to say that my favorite character is Marvin.
Really?
And the ship. Marvin and the ship. Together. Because one is so sad and one is so happy.
Right.
Like, the ship to me
they
on
have
the
general
movie,
people skills.
Yeah. The ship to me, and now mind you, I'm basing most of this off of the movie because we've seen it more recently. And like I said, the book was just really dry, so it took me a really long time to get through it. So I don't remember a lot from it.
Right.
But the ship sounds like the main character from Assassination Classroom.
Kiro Sensei.
Good old Sensei.
It does.
It sounds like them. I keep waiting for it to go, silly children, you can't do that, but give me another poison. Let's see what happens. Oh, this is interesting.
He's like so excited about impending doom. Like in the movie when the nukes are coming. I'm so excited to inform you guys that 2 large nuclear missiles are coming right at us.
Thermonuclear.
Yeah, thermonuclear.
I'm gonna take evasive action, okay, guys? Like, it was just so ridiculous. But Marvin and the ship, because I feel like Marvin is me on most days, but the ship is what I want to be. I try to be very, very positive, but it does not always work. Some days I'm like, well, of course you're sending me to the cargo hold. Like, that's just my feelings for the day. That's how everything comes across.
Right.
But I try to be very much more oh, look, it's thermonuclear missiles. We're so excited.
Take everything with joy.
That's the attempt.
Right. That really is a struggle, honestly, sometimes. We as Christians, we're commanded to look at everything with joy. And, with every trial, every temptation, the scriptures tells us to consider it pure joy when we go through these things, because it's an opportunity for us to grow. Of course, that doesn't mean that we need to be super hypey, like...
There's a balance.
When I was joking with some of our students once, I was like, it doesn't mean that we need to be all happy and laughing, because that people that are like that all the time are probably on drugs.
Probably.
But it is taking an opportunity to go, you know what, this is a bad situation right now, but I'm counting it as joy because we're going to make it through the end, and we're going to grow, and we're going to be better by the end of it all. I love Marvin also. He's probably one of my favorite characters, though. But honestly, my favorite characters are Ford and Arthur. And it's because the dynamic between the two of them. Ford is like, we're doing this. Come on, guys. And Ford and Arthur are almost the computer and Marvin, actually.
In
live action, Arthur's like, oh my goodness, this is a bad deal. I can't believe we're doing this.
I did find it interesting that when we were listening to the radio drama, he was like, here, drink this beer, eat the peanuts, you're going to need salt and hydration.
Right.
Like, there was an explanation, not just we need a drink, let's go.
Right. Yeah. And so, and you didn't have as much of an explanation. You had small lines. He's like in the movie, he's like, here, eat these peanuts. It's like, you're going to need the salt. He's like, why? And like, there's just kind of this awkwardness, and eventually explained it. But in the radio drama, it was much quicker. And I think part of that is simply because in a radio drama, you have to explain things.
Yes.
You have to get to the point of things. Whereas in a movie, you can show it. So I think that's part of the reasoning for that. But yeah, I liked Ford and Arthur, just their relationship together, and the growth of Arthur, even going from just kind of the spineless person to someone who well, I mean, he's still not brave, but he's a lot better than he was at the beginning. So, Marvin, though, I want to point out some about Marvin that's quite interesting. There is something like, you just want to hug him.
I know.
You know?
It's okay, Marvin.
in the radio drama, when they're on the second Earth, they're about to get blown up. They're about to again, and they're shooting at them. And of course, they're on Magathria, actually, because they're building Earth on Magathria. But all of a sudden, they get time warped to the restaurant at the end of the universe,
which has a shielder and Clara.
Exactly. So, but they're at this restaurant at the end of the universe. And of course, they think they're dead because they should have been dead. And all of a sudden, they get a phone call, and they're like, "There's the way it comes. Excuse me, sir. There's a phone call for you." And Zabrox, he's like, "Who's calling me? Like, I don't even know where we're at." So they pick up. It's Marvin. Marvin didn't time warp. He's been on Magathria all this time. And so he's talking to them, and he's like, "Do you want me to just, like," they're having this argument. He goes, "Would you just rather me put my head in a bucket of water?" He's like, "What, man? What are you going on?" He goes, "Fine, I'll do it." And you hear this splash. It's like there's like this depressive state of Marvin. You're like, "Dude, cheer up! Stop being so sad and depressing. Like, let me give you a hug, robot."
It's okay.
What is happening? Uh-oh. What is this pin and pineapple doing in my hands?
Why?
I just know. BPAP? Why are we dancing? What is happening here?
Why is Ryuk suddenly in the room?
I have a pen. I have an apple. Apple pen.
I have a pen. I have a pineapple. Pineapple pen. Apple pen. Pineapple pen. Pineapple. Apple pen.
Why is this happening to us?
Why is there a Shinigami in the room?
Pineapple. Apple pen. That was ridiculous.
I don't even like that song.
What just happened to us just now?
At an improbability of 312,890,097.7 to 1, the compulsion to sing Pin Pineapple Apple Pin came upon you. I'm glad I'm partially in another dimension. You people are weird.
Thanks.
Thanks, Glix.
Appreciate the love there, Glix.
Can you just get it fixed?
She's working on it. All right, hopefully we have no more disturbances from this point forward. So, all right, so let's wrap up this with conversation about our favorite lines. We've been quoting it the entire time. Now, we went to our Devoted Geek Life Facebook group, and we asked them for their favorite lines from the movie.
I just realized I sounded like a door.
You did sound like a door.
It was unintentional.
All right, so let's read some of the things from Devoted Geek Life, which again, if you're not part of Devoted Geek Life, go to facebook.com and search for Devoted Geek Life. That is the official group page for Geek Devotions. And take part in our discussions we have. We do random polls. We have different things that happen there. And
they actually pretty much dictated this entire episode.
They did, which we need to explain that, actually.
Let's get through this and then we'll explain.
Okay, we'll explain it.
Okay. So the first comment was from Noah Yelverton, and it says, "I can only think of 42.
42?
42?
That was my favorite part, actually, that scene, was a random guy, like, when Deep Thought goes, the answer is 42. And everyone's staring, and you hear the guy from the background going, 42!
Let's go, yes. I've quite thought about this in depth.
Right? Well, what's interesting about that, though, is that in the radio drama, when they're explaining that scene, so that scene's quite different, you have somebody randomly shout out in the midst of everything, kind of the same, and I forgot what the area of Britain that accent is, but yelling 42, like, and so I'm like, did they? And almost when I heard it, I'm like, did they sample that from the movie?
They may have. Okay, so Jonathan Gilbert says, "So long and thanks for all the fish."
That is such a great line. You posted up a thing. It's rubbish.
I've seen it. It's rubbish.
That's Marvin, obviously. Somebody posted up a video. Oh, yes! This is my favorite one. Okay, so it's the YouTube video of the scene where they first land on the ship. They're trying to escape the Volgarns, and they go through the infinite improbability drive. They explain it, and Ford and
Arthur
are on the ship, but they're sofas.
Ford, I think I'm a sofa. I know the feeling.
That's one of my favorite ones. All right, Adam Collings. He says, they hung about the earth exactly the way that bricks don't.
Above.
They hung above, yeah.
Okay. Michael Stanlin says, when they try to use the point of view gun on Trillian, she says, it won't affect me. I'm already a woman.
All right, let's see here. Our friend Ben Avery from Welcome to Level 7 and, obviously, Strangers Aliens, he says, time is an illusion. Lunchtime, doubly so.
Which I agree. That's a fantastic line.
He also posted up, again, another one of my favorite lines. The ball petunias in the well sequence is amazing as well, especially when later Adams explains the significance to, oh no, not again. Which I've yet to get to the point where he explains that, so I'm quite curious about it.
I need to know.
Right. Hank Harwell says, the Encyclopedia Galactica defines a robot as a mechanical apparatus designed to do the work of a man. The marketing division of Sirius Cybernetics Corporation defines a robot as your plastic pal who's fun to be with. Which was actually, I heard that line the other day, and I had to laugh at it because it was in direct reference to Marvin.
Nice.
Now, he put the whole thing. Sweet.
Yeah.
All right, so this is not in the movie.
It's in the radio?
It was in the radio drama. It's probably in the book somewhere. But this was actually a really fun, like, I'm weed eating my mom's yard, and I'm laughing as I'm listening to this.
And looking crazy to the neighbors.
The Hitchhiker's Travel Guide describes the marketing department of the Sirius Cybernetic Corporation as a bunch of mindless jerks who will be the first against the wall when the revolution comes. Curiously, in addition to the Encyclopedia Galactica, which conveniently fell through a rift in the time-space continuum from 1,000 years in the future, describes the marketing department of the Sirius Cybernetics Corporation as a bunch of mindless jerks who were the first against the wall when the revolution came.
Michael Moorjohn says, thanks for all the fish.
I know one of my favorite ones was actually when they had gone through the improbability drive. They all came out as yarn.
Yes.
And they're like, Earth, he's about to be sick. He goes, hey, watch it, Earthman. And he throws up all the yarn and everything.
And then it goes back to normality and he's still throwing up yarn. Like he's picking it out of his teeth.
So, cool thing about that scene is when we were listening to a radio drama earlier today before recording, when they escape from the restaurant at the end of the universe, they've stolen somebody's ship, and it's the way they're describing everything is black on top of black on top of black, so you can't tell what you're doing. And Arthur goes, "Oh, I think I'm gonna be sick." And Zabrox actually goes, "Go ahead and do it. This thing could use a bit of color."
Nice.
Oh my goodness. So, all right. So, those are some of our favorite lines. Those are some of the favorite lines from them. Celeste, do you have a favorite line?
I think the sofa scene is my favorite.
Okay.
Although, pretty much anything Marvin says.
All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. Before we go into our outro, I want to explain to you how you guys helped us this week. Earlier this week, Celeste and I posted up a rather odd poll. And some of our friends, like Paul, frustratingly did not answer until we twisted his arm.
Begged and pleaded and posted gifs of puppies begging.
So what were the questions that we asked people?
We asked A or B, 1, 2, or 3, red or blue, and then apple, pineapple, and pen.
Right. Which everyone looked at and was like, what? So the reason why we asked these questions, we know it's random, is each question was linked to a different answer. Mm-hmm. We didn't want you guys to know what it was. And I had worked out this rather strange algorithm, and depending on your answers dictated how our improbability drive worked today.
There were several options. Several options.
Let's hear. Like, some of the ones that didn't get done was the Squatty Potty commercial in Spanish.
Yes.
Singing Disney songs.
Having Glix drop a beat.
Yeah. What else was happening?
Read off the intro into Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been fun.
And then we also had Glix singing Pin, Pineapple, Apple Pin. So
which would have been intriguing.
It was. So thanks, guys, for taking part in that poll. We do appreciate it. If you're not part of Devoted Geek Life, check it out. Just go to Facebook and search for Devoted Geek Life. And also, check out our regular Facebook page. Just look for Geek Devotions.
Now, for those of you who listen to the podcast but are not on our Facebook page, we made an announcement Tuesday that Comm Talk is now going to be bi-weekly.
Right.
You will get
bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly? Bi-weekly?
I don't know.
I think it's bi-weekly.
Twice a month.
When it's your paycheck, it's bi-weekly.
Every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, you are going to get a podcast. We made this decision partially because we needed to get some regularity into, ironically,
normality.
We needed to reset to normality with the podcast, and every week is just really difficult for us to do for some reason. Right. And so we want to provide consistent quality content. So if we have 2 weeks to plan it, then we have more time to get it done, do it, record it, and get it up on time for you.
Right. And that's really what we want to do, guys. We want to give you guys some consistency. So let us know what you thought about this episode, obviously. What do you think about this whole thing with Glix and the improbability drive and all that good stuff? And yeah. So with that being said, let's kick it into our outro.
Thank you so much for taking time to enjoy this podcast episode. If you loved this episode, head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. It also makes our podcasters feel good on the inside. If you listened to this podcast on YouTube, please leave a comment and consider subscribing to Geek Devotions. Again, this will make our podcasters feel good. Throughout this podcast, we shamelessly plugged other podcasts such as Retro Rewind Podcast, Victims, and Villains, Welcome to Level 7, Reformed Anime Hub, and Geeks Under Grace. Do us a favor and go and subscribe to their podcasts and channels. It'll make them feel good on the inside. Until next Sunday, stay devoted. Peace and love.